If you're building on LinkedIn, here's what breaks the system for you: connecting with everyone and pitching immediately. That's needy and it doesn't work. Most people treat LinkedIn like a numbers game. They connect with as many people as possible, send a generic pitch, in the connection request or right after they accept, hoping something sticks. That approach worked maybe 5 years ago when LinkedIn was less saturated and these automation tools were not there. But now everyone is doing it, and your ideal clients are getting pitched 10 times a day. They're numb to it and they ignore it. Here's the problem with that approach: you're positioning yourself as someone who needs them more than they need you. So you're chasing, and experienced founders don't respect people who chase. They respect people who are selective and about who they work with. The entire strategy I use is built around selectivity, not accessibility. So I automate sending blank connection requests with no message attached to it for my clients. People think that's lazy, but it's actually strategic. When you send a connection request with a message, you're forcing someone to make a decision before they even know who you are. They haven't seen your profile, they haven't consumed your content, they have no context. All they see is a stranger sending them a pitch, so they default to ignore. A blank request makes them evaluate your profile first. When they receive a blank request, they click your profile to see who you are. They see your headline, they see your banner, they read your about section, they go to your featured section, they scroll through your recent content. Now, if your profile is optimized and your content is strong, they accept. If not, they simply ignore. Either way, you're not chasing, you're qualifying. But the blank request forces them to do the work of evaluating whether you're relevant to them before they ever decide to accept or ignore. That's filtering, and that's exactly what you want. So here's how I usually build the list of people my clients want to connect with, because this isn't supposed to be random. I use Sales Navigator to define the exact persona for my clients of who they want to connect with. So Sales Navigator lets you filter by industry, company size, revenue, the growth of the company in terms of employees, the roles of the individuals, years in the business, all these different other criteria that you can, narrow it down to get exactly the people who you want to work with. Now, let's say we have a list of 500 to 1,000 people who match the ideal customer profile for my client. Then what I do is I upload this list into a software called heyreach.io. This is an automation tool that sends connection requests on LinkedIn at scale without your account getting flagged or banned. Because see, LinkedIn has its limits on how many connections you can send per day. And if you go over those limits manually, they restrict your account. But with this software, we automate it while staying within LinkedIn's limits. And I set to usually 20 or 30 requests per day, every day consistently, and not all at once, not in bursts, just a steady flow every single day. So over time, you're building a network of your exact ideal customers, not random connections, not people who might be interested, but people who match the exact profile you want to work with, who you can help, solve a problem and help them with their challenges. So what happens after they accept? Your content starts showing up in their feed. They're passively scrolling LinkedIn, but your posts, they appear because you're now connected. They see your name once, twice, 5 times, 10 times over the course of the next couple of weeks, and you're building touch points without ever pitching to them. They're not engaging yet, they're just consuming. But over time, you're building recognition. They start thinking that I've seen this person's name a lot. They seem to know what they're thinking about. And that's familiarity. And this familiarity is what builds trust. But here's another thing that most people get wrong. Once they connect with someone, they think my profile has done the work. I need to immediately send a pitch. That is transactional, and it kills the relationship before it ever starts. The person accepted your request because they saw your profile and thought you might be interesting. They didn't accept it because they wanted to be sold to. So when you pitch immediately, you're breaking that implicit agreement. Right? They thought this was going to be a relationship, and you turned it into a transaction. They ignore you and they mentally file you under, let's say, a salesperson instead of an interesting person. So we never pitch after someone accepts. We let them consume the content passively, and then we wait for signals. So these signals are actions that indicate interest. They view the client's profile, they engage with the post, they, let's say, commented on something, or they shared it, or they clicked the link in one of the featured sections that we have on the profile. Now, only once we see these signals do we ever reach out. And again, this is still not a pitch. It's a conversation based on their behavior. The smallest or the easiest example could be, hey, I noticed you viewed my profile a couple of times recently. Curious what caught your attention. As simple as that. And the fact is, this is warm because it's based on something they actually did. It's not a cold message. And they respond because you're not pitching, you're acknowledging their interest. So the conversation, it starts naturally and it's not transactional. And here's the compounding effect of this approach. So you're sending 20 to 30 requests every single day. People are accepting, you're growing your connections. Some of them engage, some of them don't, but they're all consuming. And you're constantly tracking signals through softwares that I like Teamfluence, and you're seeing who's viewing your profile, who's engaging with your post, who's clicking your link. So when you see those patterns, you reach out, not to everyone, just to people who are showing an interest. That's selective outreach, and it converts at a completely different rate than cold pitching. So by the time you actually reach out, they already know who you are. They've already consumed your content and they're already interested. So the conversation, that first conversation, is never about convincing them. It's just about exploring fit. That's the real leverage you get with building a personal brand.